Hi, my name is Scott FitzGerald. I'm the managing partner in the Boston office of the immigration law firm Fragomen. And I'm joined here today with one of my good friends and a fellow member of the British American Business Council of New England, Vince Lau. And Vince and I have been practicing in the area of U.S. immigration law for many, many years. And we've probably never seen anything like we've been going through for the last 3.5. But things seem to be getting even more interesting. So we thought we would take some time to talk to you all about the recent second presidential proclamation on immigration into the United States and how it will affect members of the business community, including our fellow members in the British American Business Council of New England. So I'm going to kick it right off with you, Vince, and just can you tell us basically what is included in this most recent presidential proclamation?
Sure, Scott. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about some exciting times in immigration. This second presidential proclamation, as far as immigration is concerned, one of the things it does is it extends the first one, which was a restriction on allowing individuals to enter the United States when they're trying to get here for green card purposes. In addition to that, what they've also done is extended it to non-immigrants, or those people who are trying to come to the United States for work purposes, for short-term work purposes, and specifically for the H-1B specialty occupation visa, the H-2B, which applies to individuals coming here for non-agricultural seasonal work, the J-1, certain types of J-1s, and these are usually for people coming in as interns and trainees, au pairs and camp counselors and for summer work, and also the L1s. The L1s are individuals who are executives or managers or have specialized knowledge about some businesses coming into the United States. So as you can see, they're hitting a wide spectrum of workers coming into the United States. Scott.
And for how long are they not allowed to enter the U.S.?
Yeah, so the current ban is good until December 31st. So actually it took effect June 24th, just a few days ago, and it's good until December 31st, 2020. The president is reserving his right to extend this. The argument is that the economy is not great right now because of COVID, and they want to give American workers sort of the best opportunity to compete for these jobs.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to talk just for a minute about what's not covered. So there were 3 items that we thought were going to be included in the proclamation, but really for legal and logistical issues and reasons, it probably won't happen for a bit, and it'll probably be handled through the regulatory process. One of those is what they call H-4 visa holders, and those are spouses of H-1B visa holders, and H-4 visa holders can apply for work authorization in the United States, and there is an effort to cancel that program, and it'll probably be done in the next few months through the regulatory process. It's about 100 or 110,000 foreign nationals living and working in the United States, and interestingly, the vast majority of them are women from India. About 90,000 of them, the recent estimates are. So it's going to be, the optics of that, I think, are going to be extremely troubling if it comes through. The second big category is what they call F1 OPT. So F1 is a student visa. OPT is optional practical training. And so you come here and you study, let's say you study for 4 years and get a bachelor's degree, or you get a master's degree, or even a PhD. When you complete one of these degree programs, you're entitled to 1 year of what they call optional practical training. You can work for a U.S. employer for a year, or if you have a degree in one of the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, then you can work for up to 3 years. And there is, for 3.5 years now, the president has been complaining about this program and threatening to cancel it. And so this is in the crosshairs as best we can tell. We'll probably see something in the next few weeks or months from a regulatory perspective. The third one, and we don't want to get too deep in the weeds for our Babapsky colleagues, but there's an effort for or by the U.S. government to try to prove that companies that hire consulting companies to put people on their sites, on their work sites, that for some reason they should be joint employers, so that if you hire a big consulting company to do a big consulting project for your company, and you have a bunch of people from that company working on your premises, well, we think that you should have to, guarantee their compensation and be jointly liable, and it's a huge trap. So this is a third thing that's going to probably be announced in the next few weeks or months, and it's going to blow up and affect a whole bunch of U.S. employers in the consulting companies that service them. So something to keep an eye on. So Vince, can we talk about practical implications? I mean, what does this mean? Does this mean, if I'm here and I'm working and I'm on an H, do I have to leave, that kind of thing? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so Scott, that's really interesting, right? And this is something that both Scott and I are seeing in the last few days, sort of additional interpretations of what the executive order says. And I think from a very practical level, individuals who are here already in the United States in any one of these categories shouldn't really have to worry. Because a lot of times, a lot of the language in the executive order really talks about individuals who are not here and who are trying to go to the US consulates to get a visa to come into the United States. So if you're already here, I would say most of you are fine. I think where it gets a little gray is down the road, what happens if you need to do some subsequent travel. But I would say for most people who are here in the United States, you should be fine. Would you agree with that, Scott?
Yes, I would. Yep.
Okay.
One of the big challenges I think that is going to continue over time is no one's been able to come into the country since, let's say, mid-March, and so now you're talking about 9 months without any new workers entering into the workforce in these visa categories. So that the practical implications of that at some point is a shortage, and that's the big debate. The heart of this debate is fairly simple. The majority of H-1B workers, let's just use them as an example, the majority are in the STEM fields. And there's plenty of statistics out there that will tell you that somewhere around 70% of students in the STEM fields in U.S. colleges and universities are foreign students. Mm-hmm. And they'll also tell you that the unemployment rate in computer-related occupations has gone down since January. So between January and April, that unemployment rate, through January and May, the unemployment rate went down, and we'll have to see what happens in June. But that's those two factors would strongly suggest that, not allowing any of these folks to come in and looking for ways to stop some of these folks from continuing to work is only going to increase the problem. You can't transfer these skills. You can't, lose your job in a restaurant or in a retail store and suddenly be able to engage in, high-level computer diagnostics. It's just there's a big gap there. That's going to be the challenge. The optics of having all these people out of work are obviously overwhelming, but this is a political solution and unfortunately not a practical one. One of the things that we wanted to talk about is what can Babapsty members and companies do to combat this. And so the first time around, and Vince, please chime in if I'm missing anything here, but when the first proclamation came out, and that was really focused mostly on family-based immigration, the green card process through family sponsorship. And so for the corporate community, it was pretty benign. There were some lawsuits that were filed as a result of that proclamation, but they were not successful. And the main reason, as I understand it, is that the court said, well, there's no harm, right? The consulates are closed anyway, so you can't show immediate harm through the issuance of this proclamation. So I would suspect that we may see something similar this time around, where there will be some lawsuits filed against this proclamation, which bans these folks from coming in. And it's possible that the court would say the same thing, like, well, the consulates are closed, so I'm not sure an injunction is going to have any immediate effect. So, however, the second piece, the stuff that I had spoken to, the stuff that's coming, is scary stuff, right? So basically, we believe that the H-1B category will become so restrictive that it'll be incredibly hard to qualify. And this will all be done without any congressional input. And so that would be the basis to file a lawsuit. Or there's the proposed $20,000 per H-1B legal fee, I'm sorry, filing fee, so that each company would have to pay $20,000 for an H-1B. And that, I mean, that's insane, right? So I think that would be grounds for a lawsuit. We would anticipate that there are large multinational foreign-based companies with huge operations in the U.S. who may not be able to get their executives in on the L1 program, and they may say, this is crazy. This is a massive investment from our company abroad, and we can't even monitor it. That's not acceptable. So that's grounds for a lawsuit. My wife and I are the former employers of, I think, probably 5 au pairs, because they can only stay for 2 years, over a 10-year period. And I talked to Janice about, wow, could you imagine where we would have been if we had found out, in June that our au pair wasn't coming in September? It's not going to happen. Now that may not happen anyway because of COVID and the consular closings, but there's going to be a lot of families that are going to struggle because it's very, very hard to employ a U.S. worker in the home for that kind of work. So I think there's a lot of folks who are going to have standing, and we'll probably see some litigation over the summer. Other questions, Vince, that you can think of that folks are asking that maybe weren't clear from the proclamation, but we're starting to get a little more clarity?
Yeah, I think first off, I know this is towards for Babacne, but some of you may have Canadians, Canadian colleagues or Canadian employees. The one thing that has been clear is that this proclamation does not apply to Canadians, which is great because they do, especially here, we got a lot of Canadians coming in to work, so they're exempt from this. The other thing, like I said before, is if the individual's already here in the United States, this proclamation doesn't necessarily cover them. So Scott, you're probably seeing the same thing. A lot of employers are still looking for talent, and there's talent that's wanting to switch from employer to employer. So these individuals are able to switch and obviously have their new employer file the proper paperwork for them. But these are the questions that we're getting, people who are here. And if it's not clear already, if you're a green card holder, this does not apply to you. And I've gotten a lot of frantic calls from individuals who may be UK citizens and say, well, I have a green card and I've been here for a long time. How could they keep me out? I said, wait a minute, this doesn't apply to you or to your family members. So it's causing a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, right? So I think the best thing to do is obviously, from a lawyer's perspective, we're like, yeah, litigate and fight this. The other thing, of course, is just educate and find out more and talk to people, in your community, talk to your political leaders, government leaders. The more we can get people to really just advocate for understanding what's involved and the harm, to the community would be great.
So another issue that has come up that we think we have clarity on, if you were abroad, not in the United States when the proclamation was issued, but you have a valid visa in one of these categories, you should be able to enter. That is our understanding. On the other hand, what we don't know yet is if you need a visa and you haven't yet secured the approval of your petition prior to the proclamation, and let's say your status is going to expire, you can file to extend, you can stay here and you can work, but we don't know if you can leave and go and get a visa. We're trying to get answers to these questions. So it's very important. If we don't know, right? And so people say, well, I've got to make my travel plans. Well, okay, understand the substantial risk. It's certainly the government, the State Department, and certainly the White House are going to want the answer to be no. But the way the proclamation was drafted, it's certainly not clear. And so we're looking and working to get greater clarity on that. And hope to have that in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and Scott, the other thing too is for people to remember that this proclamation shouldn't be taken in isolation, right? I mean, there's a lot of other restrictions that are going on in terms of There's the travel restrictions where you've been to the UK or Ireland or China, Iraq, Brazil, and any of the Schengen countries that you can't come back for 14 days, right? Or if you've been there within 14 days, you can't come into the United States. And so even if you had the proper visa, you have to make sure that when you make your plans, you take that restriction into consideration. And then practically speaking, as you said, some consulates aren't even open. We've also had clients who have met the letter of the law, but the airlines don't let them on board. So that is something to be mindful of. And I'll also throw out, and you've probably seen this, is people who have layovers in any of the restricted countries. Now, all of a sudden, they've been subject to this 14-day quarantine. So just a lot of different things to watch out for, because these orders are don't take them into isolation. You got to consider all of them at once.
One additional issue that has popped up on the horizon late last week is the announcement from the USCIS, that's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, that they will be furloughing about 70% of their workforce. It's 13,400 workers, U.S. workers, that they intend to furlough unless the Congress gives them an additional $1.2 billion because they've run out of funds. This is extremely controversial. Some of you who study this stuff may recall that last July, the then director of the USCIS, Cuccinelli, sought out volunteers from USCIS to leave their positions in the different service centers and go down and supplement immigration and customs enforcement on the border. Basically, that's not their mandate. That's not what their job is, but that was certainly more important to him and to the White House. So they used that money, right, to go do something that was not in any way, shape, or form their responsibility. And so they've done a bunch of things that have resulted in them spending money on non-core programs. Now they're out. And so Congress, I think, is going to look at this with a very determined eye. But the optics of laying off, 13,400 U.S. workers who have work to do, not setting aside, Vincent and my occupation and the thousands and thousands of lawyers and support staff that are in this industry, to stop them from doing work when the government is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to pay people who cannot work just to keep payrolls going. That's crazy. But without question, there are folks within the administration and within Congress who believe that the work that we're all doing is evil, is not good work. So, to tell them, well, we're laying off 13,000 U.S. workers, but they're doing the devil's work. But okay. I think this is going to be an interesting debate. We have another 30 days, I believe, to find out where this is going to end up. We're hopeful that Congress, unfortunately, will spend the money. But please, hopefully, they will put in some processes to ensure that it is spent appropriately and not on programs that are not relevant to the mission.
Right.
With that, I think it's going to be a wait and see. We are in unprecedented times, and there's no question that the president is feeling pressure to satisfy the perceived desires of his electoral base. And one of those is to stop immigration. And whether it makes sense or not, whether you believe that someone who is a U.S. worker and has been laid off in a coal mine or in a factory can suddenly pivot and do some of this high-end STEM work. No, I don't think it's possible. But I don't think the media nor the political forces are really reflecting on that. I mean, this is just raw meat for the electorate, and we're just going to have to continue to navigate through this. Right. So with that, Vince, any other final comments?
No, I mean, I think wait and see is a good way to sort of sum it up, because Scott, you and I know that a lot of the restrictions and interpretations and implementations are very fluid, and we're waiting to see on the ground to see how a lot of officials are going to interpret this on a day-to-day. So I would say, if you need to travel internationally, or if you don't need to, stay put. And if you need to, please be careful. Yeah.
And seek some guidance.
That's
if people need additional guidance, have questions, it's very easy. You can either, pose the question through your BAB, British American Business Council contact, which obviously is Ursula here in the Boston or New England area. And also, I promise you, if you Google Vince Lau, LAU, or Scott FitzGerald, leave the F off the front end and put immigration for either of us, we'll pop right up with our contact details, and we'll be delighted to help in any way we can. All right, thank you, Vince. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Okay.
Very good.